Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to News Toast, and we're going to open up the week with some fairly exciting PlayStation news. I don't know if this will necessarily be what PlayStation fans are hoping it'll be, but it is communication from Sony at the very least, which, hey, that's better than nothing, and I want to talk about what I hope will happen there. Then we're also going to talk about Xbox and their future. I feel like this year, more than any previous year, has maybe muddied their future a little bit, and there are some major question marks for them. But it sounds like Xbox actually has some exciting plans for the future, and this might be sooner than what some fans are maybe expecting. Let's just go and jump right into things, though, starting off with the Nintendo Switch Successor. Last week, the floodgates opened up with the alleged 3D renders leaking out online. The best way I can kind of describe it is that it's the Nintendo Switch, but it's bigger and it's better. The design itself might come off as maybe a little bit boring to some people because it's pretty much the same design, but honestly, I think that's what a lot of us want anyways. So I'm actually pretty happy about the leak, assuming that this is legitimate, and that's really the big question right now. Is this actually a real leak, or is it just some kind of hoax like we saw prior to the original Switch reveal? And while we can't be 100% certain unless Nintendo confirms it themselves, Digital Foundry threw their hat in the ring, and they mentioned they believe it is in fact a real leak. Digital Foundry said that because of prior leaks based on tracking shipping manifest coming out of Taiwan, it can be determined that the leak last week is genuine, or at least as accurate as an old prototype dating from October 2023 can be. So they are basing this off of 1-year-old information, and there is a possibility that things could have maybe changed since then. But I believe this is now the third major outlet that has echoed this sentiment, that this leak is accurate based on the information that they had previously heard. So, if anything here, there's a good chance that this could actually turn out to be the real thing. Again, personally, I think that's good news. I like the design myself. I was, kind of worried that they might include some weird gimmick that I don't like, but it looks like they're going to go with the not broke, so don't fix it mentality. And as far as the specs are concerned, it sounds pretty good to me. It's basically the PlayStation 4 combined with DLSS, and to me, that sounds pretty fantastic for a mainstream Nintendo handheld console. But let me know what you all think about all this. Are you satisfied with what leaked last week, or not? Now, moving on here, we got some new information for Space Marine 2 and the future for this series. As we've seen these past few weeks, Space Marine 2 has gotten off to a pretty fast start. It launched right away with 2 million players, and I'd say this has been one of the better surprises for 2024. And it looks like it's not over quite yet. The Saber Interactive Chief Creative Officer told IGN in an interview that it was the fastest selling game that he's worked on, which includes games like Doom, Wolfenstein, and Quake. So that's some fairly good competition, and I'd say that's pretty impressive to say the least. And when you have a big successful game like this, yeah, you can kind of bet they're already planning for more to come, and that's exactly what they're doing. He went on to say that they're already proposing new story ideas for either DLC or just a flat-out sequel. My guess is that we could actually end up getting both. And for anybody who's been enjoying Space Marine 2, that is super, super exciting stuff. Again, I think Space Marine 2 has been one of the better surprises this year. It's all about having a good, fun time, which is kind of what games are meant to be, and we need more games like this. So the fact that it's doing well, yeah, kind of ensures that we will get more in the future. Now, here's something really interesting that I certainly wasn't expecting, but Platinum Games acquired the Wonderful 101 trademark from Nintendo. I actually was not aware that Nintendo owned the trademark at all. Platinum Games just a few years ago ported it to multiple platforms, but I guess they must have gotten permission from Nintendo in order to do that. That's kind of interesting to think about in itself, but clearly Nintendo saw no harm in the matter, and now here we are in 2024, and they've given Platinum Games complete control of the Wonderful 101 IP. I almost wonder if this is a sign of maybe a sequel to come. Why else would Platinum Games have interest in gaining that trademark? And if so, this would certainly be an interesting choice from them. Wonderful 101 isn't necessarily a big-time seller per se, but it is a good game with a unique idea, and they could possibly evolve that idea with an eventual sequel. I also know there's a lot of hardcore fans for this series. It did have a Kickstarter campaign years ago, and it was very successful. So if you like Wonderful 101, then you might have something to look forward to in the future. In the meantime, though, Nintendo still owns Astral Chain, which is another Nintendo-exclusive Platinum Games franchise, so hopefully their partnership together will continue into their next generation, because if we need a sequel for any of their games, that's the one that I'd give my vote to. Okay, so let's go and talk about Xbox and their future. I feel like out of all of the big three console manufacturers, their future is probably the most mystifying. This year has been such a head-scratcher in certain ways with their multi-platform, but not completely multi-platform approach, and this does kind of beg the question about how they're going to deal with future hardware. Do they even care about Xbox hardware by this point? That question is thrown around a lot. And by all indication, yes, they absolutely still do. We've heard both Sarah Bond and Phil Spencer tease future hardware. They've been describing their next hardware as the largest technical leap in a hardware generation. And that alone, if it is true, that is exciting on paper. What's just as interesting, though, is that we keep hearing about two different things. One is that this largest technical leap is not the only console that they have planned, and two, Xbox is planning to release these consoles much sooner than their main competitor, PlayStation. And we're once again hearing about those exact same things. So this comes from Jez Corden over on Windows Central, and this is what he said. Xbox's 25th anniversary would fall on November 15th of 2026, which puts it firmly in range of a new generation of Xbox hardware, potentially. Sony just revealed its mid-generation console, the PlayStation 5 Pro, which Xbox has passed on competing with this time around. Instead, it seems Xbox is full steam ahead with its next set of console hardware, which we tentatively believe, based on our own sources, to include at least both a traditional style successor to the Xbox Series X and Microsoft's first real foray into Xbox handheld gaming with its own take on the Steam Deck. So this statement once again leans into the idea that Xbox is indeed planning an early next-generation console for possibly their 25th anniversary in 2026. Now, based on the information that we have, Sony isn't expected to release the PS6 until at least 2028, or at least according to Microsoft's own internal documents. We saw this last year in the court case against the FTC. So if Microsoft actually predicted that correctly, then that would mean that they're trying to beat them to the punch and to start next generation early, similar to what they did in 2005 with the Xbox 360. And hey, that strategy actually worked out for them. The Xbox 360 went toe-to-toe with the PS3, and that was coming off the most successful console of all time, the PlayStation 2. Now, okay, to be fair here, Sony kind of shot themselves in the foot with their $600 launch price tag. So Sony certainly helped them out, but even still, the Xbox 360 was a great console that was easy to develop for. Developers really liked the Xbox 360, and that paid off in dividends for Xbox that generation. Also, the fact that they had a one-year head start over the PlayStation 3 allowed them to get millions of consoles in the hands of fans before the PS3 even launched. So the idea that Xbox could gain some ground by starting next generation early isn't completely unfounded. That would mean that they could potentially have the most powerful hardware for at least a couple years. Developers would also be much more accustomed to Xbox hardware, given that this would be the main next-generation platform, and that could be a big boon for Xbox. Though I will say one thing about next generation, price will be very important. That's been a major narrative these past 2 weeks. With the PS5 Pro coming in at $700 without a disk drive, I might add, then what exactly does that mean for next generation? And well, if anything here, Xbox might have the opportunity to kind of set the table, if you will. And not just for this home console either, but also for their alleged new handheld. Phil Spencer has already teased their interest in the PC handheld space, and it'll be very interesting to see how they'll navigate that. To me, it kind of sounds like they'll have two options similar to how they approach this generation. But instead of having the Xbox Series S as this budget-friendly option, they'll instead have a handheld counterpart that you can buy separately. Now, my big question with that right now is just, how are they going to differentiate it from other products like this on the market? We already have a lot of PC gaming handhelds that runs Xbox games through PC Game Pass. So I want to know how they're going to deal with that situation specifically. I want to know if their idea is to just make another PC gaming handheld, but with the Xbox logos attached to it, or instead if they're trying to make a full-fledged Xbox experience for a handheld console. Either which way, though, the future for Xbox right now is very interesting. 2026 continues to sound like a pivotal year for them, which could also be the same year for new games like Gears of War E-Day. I think that game looks mwah, and even Perfect Dark. Now that would be an incredibly exciting launch lineup. Now, one last thing before we go. PlayStation just announced a new State of Play that will go live tomorrow on September 24th at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Now, they mentioned this will be a 30-plus minute showcase with updates for more than 20 upcoming PS5 and PSVR 2 games from studios around the world. So they do have a lot of games planned for this event, though I do think I need to point out here that this is a State of Play and not a PlayStation showcase. And that's important to keep in mind because their State of Plays does tend to be smaller. So I don't think that you should go in with the expectation that this is going to be a mind-blowing event. Now, that doesn't mean that there won't be exciting news, crossing my fingers that there will be, but at the same time, I just wouldn't expect a lot of first-party heavy hitters. And that's all I'm trying to say here. However, we have been hearing about a couple of PS4 remasters, such as Horizon Zero Dawn and Days Gone. Now, personally, I think these are very strange choices, if true, but one or both could actually make an appearance here. For me, though, I think what they really need to do is to better highlight the PS5 Pro and its capabilities. I think we all kind of know by this point, Sony's done a very poor job at justifying the PS5 Pro price tag. And with pre-orders just 3 days away, they could at the very least give fans a reason to think about its pre-orders with some actual good highlights that showcases some of the differences between the Pro and the standard PlayStation 5. Now, other than that, one game to maybe look out for here is Metal Gear Solid Delta. This is a game that I'm very excited about. I love the Metal Gear Solid series, and there's been a lot of speculation that it's a 2024 title. So it could potentially get its release date tomorrow and maybe even a look at its PS5 Pro gameplay. Either which way, though, this is fairly exciting news, and hopefully PlayStation fans will have plenty to look forward to come tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Anyways, though, that's going to be it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed it, and if you did, make sure to subscribe because I'll be back tomorrow with another round of News Dose, but until then, peace out.